Welcome to this Tutor2U Sociology topic video on social inequalities for Cambridge OCR A-Level Sociology. In this video, we're going to look at the work of Rex and Tomlinson on the ethnic underclass. In the late 1970s, Britain was undergoing major social and economic changes. Immigration from the Caribbean, South Asia and the former colonies had transformed many British cities into diverse multicultural communities. Yet despite this diversity, ethnic minority groups continued to experience persistent disadvantage, discrimination and social exclusion. It was in this context that John Rex and Sally Tomlinson conducted their influential study of Handsworth in Birmingham, an inner-city working-class area with high ethnic minority population. Their aim was to explore how ethnicity shaped people's life chances and to test whether traditional class theories alone could explain the inequality experienced by ethnic minority groups. What they discovered led them to develop the concept of an ethnic underclass, a group at the very bottom of society who not only faced economic hardships but also cultural exclusion and prejudice from wider society. Rex and Tomlinson observed that ethnic minorities in Handsworth were disproportionately concentrated into poor housing, low-paid jobs and deprived neighbourhoods. They faced widespread discrimination from landlords, employers and public institutions. For example, they were often refused access to good quality housing, relegated to overcrowded or substandard accommodation, and blocked from better job opportunities due to workplace prejudice and limited access to training. Based on these findings, Rex and Tomlinson argued that ethnic minorities were not simply part of the working class, but formed a distinct ethnic underclass, doubly disadvantaged by both economic and racial inequalities. While white working class people faced disadvantage based mainly on class, ethnic minority communities suffered additional exclusion based upon their status, that is, a social stigma and discrimination that was tied to their ethnicity. Rex and Tomlinson's theory is strongly influenced by Weberian sociology. Max Weber argued that societies are stratified not only by class, economic position, but also by status, their social honour and prestige, and party, their power and influence. Rex and Tomlinson extended this framework by showing that ethnic minorities experience status inequality. They are treated as inferior or outsiders, regardless of their class position, and this status-based exclusion limits their life chances and keeps them trapped in a position of social marginalisation. Rex and Tomlinson's research was based on a mixed methods approach. They combined surveys and statistical data on income, housing and employment with in-depth interviews and observations of families and communities. This allowed them to gather both quantitative evidence of structural inequality and qualitative insights into people's everyday experiences of racism and discrimination. A strength of this approach is that it provides a detailed and well-rounded picture of ethnic inequalities, combining data and lived experience. However, the study's main limitation is that it focused on a single area, Handsworth in Birmingham, which means its findings might not represent the whole of Britain. In addition, students need to consider whether the concept of an ethnic underclass still applies in contemporary society, where patterns of inequality have become more complex. Rex and Tomlinson's key findings highlighted several areas of persistent disadvantage. In housing, ethnic minority families were often confined to poorer, overcrowded areas due to discrimination by landlords and local authorities. In the workplace, they were overrepresented in insecure, low-paid jobs with little chance of promotion. Socially, ethnic minorities were excluded from mainstream society, facing hostility and stereotyping regardless of their class or occupation. And politically, they lacked power and representation, leaving them with little influence over the policies that shaped their lives. From these patterns, Rex and Tomlinson concluded that racism and discrimination had created a marginalised ethnic underclass at the bottom of the social hierarchy, a group that was excluded both economically and socially. Rex and Tomlinson's theory has several important strengths. It draws attention to the ways that racism and discrimination operate alongside class inequality, highlighting that economic factors alone cannot explain the full extent of ethnic disadvantages. Their use of both qualitative and quantitative data provided a nuanced understanding of how structural inequality and lived experiences intersect. And the concept of an ethnic underclass has also influenced later discussions about social exclusion and marginalisation in multicultural society. However, their work also faces several criticisms. Some sociologists argue that the term ethnic underclass is problematic, as it risks labelling minority groups as permanently disadvantaged or dependent. Marxists suggest that Rex and Tomlinson did not go far enough in explaining why these inequalities exist, as they did not focus on how capitalism itself exploits ethnic labour. More recent research also shows that experiences of ethnic minorities in Britain are far from uniform. For example, some groups have achieved significant educational success and upward mobility, suggesting that the idea of a single ethnic underclass may be too simplistic. Postmodernists go even further, arguing that in today's diverse society, inequalities and identities are too complex to fit neatly into one category like an underclass. Despite these criticisms, Rex and Tomlinson's study remains highly relevant. Their findings continue to shed light on the persistence of racialised inequality in housing, employment and policing. Issues such as institutional racism, social exclusion and neighbourhood deprivation still echo Rex and Tomlinson's observations in the 1970s. For Cambridge OCR A-level sociology students, Rex and Tomlinson are especially useful in topics on ethnicity and social inequalities. Students can use their theory to explain why ethnic minorities face persistent disadvantage that cannot be explained by social class alone. The study can also be compared with Marxist theories, for example, Castle and Cossack's divide and rule theory, functionist perspectives such as Patterson's host-migrant model, or more contemporary research on ethnic inequalities. It can also be used to discuss how class and status interact to shape life chances. Rex and Tomlinson provide a powerful account of how racism and discrimination intersect with class disadvantage to create a form of social exclusion that is unique to ethnic minorities. Drawing on Weberian ideas about status and power, they show that class alone cannot explain the persistence of inequality in Britain. Although later researchers challenged the idea of a single underclass, their work remains an essential contribution to the sociology of race and ethnicity and a key study for understanding structural inequalities. That concludes this Tutor2U sociology topic video on social inequalities for Cambridge OCR A-level sociology. Looking at the ethnic underclass based on the work of Rex and Tomlinson. Thanks for watching.